Thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation to come and share and learn from each one of you. I currently work for the Amsterdam Economic Board, which is a public-private partnership, an independent foundation. We have about 150 members, which is about 33 municipalities, 2 provinces, and 120 companies funding us, all with the purpose of working for the greater Amsterdam area, Amsterdam metropolitan area, to look at the future in 2040 and see how can we just assure that in 2040 we all will be living together in reasonable prosperity and well-being. And in order to get to 2040, we need to address a couple of urban challenges. And we have defined, for instance, talent as a very important, human capital as a very important factor. A lot of people that are being born these days, 75% people estimate, will be working in jobs that currently don't exist. Health, people live longer, but are longer chronically ill. Digital connectivity, mobility, and the way we address our resources. As you've already heard today, the reason for the Netherlands or Europe to participate in a circular economy is a different one, most likely, than the one that people in Africa might have. We have a scarcity of materials. We are a net importer of precious metals. Geopolitically, we're also not very well positioned. So, circular economy is on top of the agenda for Europe, for the Netherlands, national, regional, and locally. Within the Amsterdam Economic Board, I am responsible for the Amsterdam Metropolitan Area Resource Transition Program. A lot of people ask us, okay, now you've got a program in place, but what does circularity actually look like in practice? I'll tell you more about our approach first. Our ambition for 2025, which is the timing in the Netherlands when Amsterdam is actually having its 750th birthday, is that we, within the metropolitan area, would like to be a front runner and a sharer of our smart solutions with regard to a smart circular economy. But actually, if you look at our national goals, we have actually in 2050 we have in place that we would like to have a zero waste society. Our national government says in 2050 we would like to have a zero waste, which is very important if you want to transition into something new, is to have something at the end of the line that is very strict and very well defined. And in 2030, they said we would like to have 50% less waste. So that's quite an ambition. At a regional level, it means that we actually have to work together. We have to cooperate. There's a couple of themes that we work on. We work on climate and energy, which I won't be talking about today much, and resources. And for resources, we set a program in place that says, okay, we would like to start reusing and redesigning through circular procurement. I've heard it today as well. Circular procurement is one of the very important aspects of our program, as we say that if there's no demand for circularly designed products and services, then clearly there won't be anyone starting activity to produce circular designed products and services. And the other one is that we have quite a lot of recycling initiatives, and we say we would like to focus at least on 9 different resource streams to be recycled over the coming 5 years. For energy, and that's important because from the Amsterdam Economic Board we always work, and I've heard the discussion this morning, it was mostly on how can local governments act. And we say it's not only up to local governments, it's always up to local governments jointly with corporations and jointly with knowledge institutes. So a lot of what the Amsterdam Economic Board does is actually work with those 3 parties on large transition programs. So if you look at our Amsterdam Metropolitan Area program for heat, industrial heat into residential heat, we work with 32 different parties, which is governments, knowledge institutes, and corporates. And the same accounts for CO2. CO2 is a problem. We say it's also an opportunity. So if you capture CO2 and you use it again, there will be an opportunity for innovation, whilst at the same time solving a large problem, which is CO2 emission. And again, we work with 28 partners, public-private partnerships. In order to change from a linear to a circular economy, we say you need to have a systemic change. As Susanna, I heard you today, you said you need to address the civil society as well. I do agree fully, but I've also seen that if you don't change the system, the current situation will be prolonged. For instance, in the Netherlands, we put a law in place that said that if you want to use plastic in a shop, you will have to pay 10 cents for your plastic bag. Within a couple of months, no one was using a plastic bag. Everyone was bringing in their own. So you can see that if you put in some kind of regulation and law, eventually people start thinking about it. So it's a two-way stream. So how do we work? We set, from within the Amsterdam Economic Board, we set a vision. Where do we need to go? We need to be, in 2025, we need to be A, B, C. Then we set a transition plan together with our partners, public-private partnerships. And then we see, okay, how do we actually get movement in that transition? So we bring parties together that usually don't interact. So we work cross-sectoral, where the innovation takes place. And then we initiate new initiatives and put front runners on stage so they can actually shine and inspire others to do the same. Just briefly, this is, after what I've heard today, we stopped landfilling a while ago. But what I've recently learned that we haven't completely left it behind in the Netherlands either. Because if you, as an industrial partner, offer your waste to waste incineration company 3 times and no one can actually deal with it, you can landfill. So there's still some problems in the Netherlands as well. But what we're good at, we actually import waste because we are net importer of waste because we're actually good at burning waste. And that has helped us previously to no longer landfill, but that now it's actually hindering us in the transition. And you see that more often. There's such an invested institutionalized interest that it's hard to change. So my recommendation would be, don't go into burning. Just skip that step immediately and start recycling and going into a higher field. So the best thing for circular economy is definitely to refuse, to not use, to reuse, to remanufacture, to repurpose, and then finally recycle. Having said that, if you look at the Amsterdam metropolitan area and our program that we set up with our partners, we have decided to focus on resource streams to reuse those resource streams again. So recycling, which is pretty low in our ladder of circularity. However, we say we have a current situation and we need to transition into something ideal, where products are designed circularly, where there's hardly any waste. But before we get there, we need to address what we already have. And we have a lot of waste streams that have a great impact actually on the environment. For instance, I will tell you more later, but for instance, the built environment, textile, mattresses, organic waste, we've heard that before, e-waste, data servers for data centers. So there's quite a lot of waste, and it's hugely important to keep those precious metals and products in our economic system for as long as possible. So how did we start? 2 years ago, 3 years ago, our old minister, Jacqueline Kramer, who's an ambassador of the board, and myself and other people started to do our rounds within the Amsterdam metropolitan area. We talked to 33 mayors, vice mayors, civil servants, everyone, just to arrive at a joint agreement in 2016 that we in the future will do a couple of things. One is start initiatives on the recycling of 9 precious resource streams, and the other one is full focus on circular procurement and driving change through demand. And it wasn't easy. Why do we need to work together on a larger scale? Amsterdam is big, but we have different cities, and we have a different challenge to go. We've got 2.4 million people. That's nothing if you compare it to larger cities, but still, it's an area that's quite substantial. We've got 90% of our GDP in the Netherlands. A regional cooperation is actually important because we need economies of scale. You need enough volume for people to invest, to actually upcycle. And you need enough demand to actually, for people to invest in business activity to upcycle. You need to cluster your activity as well. If each and everyone's going to do the same, then apparently you don't have enough volume to actually make this substantial. So if all the cities are just agreeing, and that's what we're working on I see that the time is ticking away. I've got my timer here, so I'm going to speed up just a little bit. But preferably conditions. We have an area that has a lot of innovation, a lot of startups, a lot of business. We've got an outstanding logistical network. So there's a lot of things in place actually to get things going and doing differently. So how does it all happen? Here you see the Amsterdam Economic Board. We say you need to focus on the whole of the spectrum. You need to focus on supply, demand, and business activity. And then on those 9 waste streams. Waste to value, supply. Municipalities are currently coordinating together how supply is being dealt with, what the standards are for collection, harmonization and tariffs, circular procurement protocol, launching customership, tell, show that you do differently. Very important. We have a lot of sessions on getting people within the different municipalities on board, and it's difficult because there's economic and political gain all over, so you always have to make sure that each and everyone get a fair share. And then if you look at all the different waste streams that we have selected, we have a certain approach that we address for each one of them. For instance, if you look at data service, one of the items I've been working on much over the last 2 months. We have a lot of data centers in the Netherlands and especially in the Amsterdam metropolitan area. That's because of the M6, which is the large cable coming into Europe in the Netherlands. It's high-speed internet, so we have 80% of the data centers in the Netherlands are actually in this area, in the Amsterdam metropolitan area. It's a good thing for business, but it's a bad thing for energy, and it's even worse thing if you look at how many of the data servers are actually being disposed of rather rapidly. And we figured out that once disposed, we lose track. We lose track of where they go. They go abroad, or they're simply being shredded because of confidentiality reasons. So what we said, okay, we need to do different. So we did bring together 25 experts who overlooked the whole of the value chain, and everyone noticed that we were losing value over the whole of the value chain, but clearly no one was feeling that, because everyone had their own business model and earning model within that linear value chain. So we said, okay, we need to do different, and then I said, but how and why? So we set out a study at a consultancy firm who looks into volumes, who looks into different ways, who looks into higher ways of disposing and higher ways of processing whatever you have. So there's refurbishing, there's compound reusing, there's everything that you can do. So now we're advising 5 front runners that are going to do different. And those 5 front runners, we put on stage, have them sign commitments, and eventually more people will follow. And then eventually, if those ecosystems grow substantially, we put them, we know, because we've seen that with the different resource streams, other people will follow eventually. So that's our way of working. Overlook, see who can do differently, advise them how to do differently, put them on stage. There's a lot of CSR policies these days, and circular economy is hot, as I've heard, and we've seen it. So once you put them on stage, and you give them all the attention they need, other people will follow, because no one would like to leave behind. And that's the benefit of being in the Netherlands currently, because there's so much, it's the talk of today, so people would like to address this. Another thing is very important, is that we have circular procurement as top issue in the Amsterdam metropolitan area, but also within our membership. We've got 150 companies paying for our mandate to look for a future of the Amsterdam metropolitan area, and all those 150 companies and organizations we actually involve in our quest that circular procurement is one of the most important things. So we set up community of practices where we involve people to actually learn together and set standards together, and also set objectives together to do things differently. And that has worked very, very well. Is there any question? Because I'm aware that I've got 1 minute left.